Oh, I had to get thicker, dang it. Dang it, I had them turned sideways. That didn't look right at all. What did I do? Hey, I'm Bob at ILikeToMakeStuff. Last week on this channel, we took all of the junk off my back porch and made it a nice oasis, a place to hang out, but all that junk had to go somewhere, and it's right here. All of the stuff ended up back here, doesn't fit in the garage, and we've got to figure out a way to organize it. And unfortunately, all of the big solutions at the store are expensive or kind of ugly or just big plastic boxes. So today, we're gonna make something that's on a budget, that looks way better and fits exactly right here to solve our problem. Let's give it a shot. So what I have to do today is build some storage to go right here, but it can't stick out too far because there's a garage door and it can only be so wide. Inside of it, I need to hold shovels and tall things on one side, and the other side can be shelves so I can have gardening stuff and basketballs and all that. Now I looked for an option at one of the big box stores, and anything that would fit in this little space was a big plastic box for like $500. So we can do better than that. We can make something that fits all of our needs, it looks way better, and is actually gonna cost a lot less than those big plastic boxes. Now the way that we visualize this is, first, obviously we modeled it in Fusion 360, that's where I do all my modeling, and it helped me to figure out exactly how big this thing needed to be. And then, using AR, you can put it on your phone, you can put it in the space, and you can actually walk around it. So we can see exactly what it's gonna look like, where it's gonna fit, and if we like the way it looks. Now that's cool for me, but it's also cool for you because if you use your phone to take a picture of the QR code that's on screen right now, you can see this model in your space to see if it works for you. And if it does work for you, we're gonna have some plans available at the end of this video so you can make one of these for yourself. Now let's head to the shop and start cutting wood. One of the ways I'm trying to keep this as a simple project is to keep limited tools. So we can do most, if not all of this with a circular saw. We'll kind of see how it goes. But I'm also trying to use less expensive materials. So instead of 2x4s, I'm using a 2x3. It's gonna work perfectly fine for the interior framing, but it is a little bit cheaper per board. Then for the outside, we're gonna be wrapping the entire thing in that plywood, which is like 1/2" indoor-outdoor paneling. As long as you seal it or paint it, it should be fine outdoors. And then we're gonna cover that up with a face frame made out of 1x3s instead of 1x4s. Now the only normal 2x4 I'm gonna use is a pressure-treated 2x4, and that's gonna be the base, the part that touches the ground. Everything else is gonna be sealed or stained or painted for outdoor use. First thing we gotta do is make our base to build the rest of it on. There's tons of staples sticking through this. What? Not tons, there's 3. One of the things you gotta be aware of with this grade of kind of construction lumber is that there are staples and nails and things that hold straps on in the store, and sometimes those get left in. So I was about to throw this on my table and noticed that there are 5 staples sticking through it in this one row, and I gotta take all those out so I don't scratch up my table or myself. These too short. What did I buy those for then? Oh, I had to get thicker, dang it. I had to get thicker sheet goods, which changed why I had to get the short screws. Dang it. Now that we've got the base done, I need to make 3 walls, one for each side and then one for the middle. It's gonna be a little bit different. Each one of these needs a bottom plate, which is a 2x3. I need a stud for the front, stud for the back that's a lot taller, and then one in the middle. The wall that's in the middle is not gonna have this center stud, just to save on material. So at this point, I just gotta cut down all of these pieces of 2x3, screw them together just like we did the base, and then I'll have walls that I can put on top of that thing. So the only real difference here is that we're gonna have an angle on the top of these pieces. I'm gonna use a chop saw or a miter saw to do that because it's easier, but you could absolutely do it with a circular saw if that's all you've got available. I'm trying something which is probably not the right way to do this, but it'd be fun and would theoretically take less time than doing them each individually. Basically, I set the saw to the 18 degrees that I need. I made a cross mark at the highest point of each one of these angles, and I'm gonna try to line up the blade across all of these high points, and then if I make the cut, it should cut all of them at the same time in the right length. I don't know, we'll find out. It's not dumb if it works. Dang it, I had them turned sideways. It's not dumb if it works. Man, bummer. Okay, it's not a huge deal. The whole thing's just gonna be about an inch shorter than I was planning. look right at all. That one is not right. What did I do? I wrote my measurement down wrong? So they have to be this way, correct?
They have to be tall.
Correct. That is the most basic possible wall frame you could make. Now, to make this a little bit stronger, although we're not really gonna need it, you could put some kind of braces across here. That's what you would do if it was actually a big wall, but this is gonna get sheeting on the outside, so it really doesn't need it. So basically I have to make one more of these for the other side, and then one for the middle that's missing this centerpiece, and then we can attach them to the base. I took these big sheets of material and ripped down some kind of strips of 20 inches, the same width as my wall. And so I'm gonna lay them on top of this, trace the line, and then just cut that with a circular saw. You could do the math to actually map it out if you want to, but may as well just trace it. So I just did that freehand, which is not gonna be a perfect line, but in this case, it's gonna look fine. It's actually gonna be covered up by trim anyway, but I wanted to point something out. If you need a straight line to run the saw along so that you have a really nice straight cut, you can take a straight edge or a level or something like that, clamp it across the piece of wood, then run the edge of the saw up against it, and you're gonna get a perfectly straight cut. Okay, so that locks the whole thing together, and I'm gonna put a piece of decorative trim with those 1x3s that I talked about. So I'm gonna do the same kind of thing, lay those in place, trace the lines, and then go to the miter saw and cut that 18-degree angle, because it's gonna be exactly the same, and the pieces should fit together really nicely. So the frame's done, it fits nicely, but before I put these pieces together, I'm gonna finish them. And that's because this is all going outside. It needs to be kind of weather resistant. I'm gonna be painting the frame with black exterior paint, and then the big panel, I'm probably gonna stain and clear coat or something to that effect, but they're gonna be different, and it would be easier to do before I attach them together. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of the thing built, get it all finished, and then I'll do the final screwing together of the frames and the surfaces. Now it's time for me to start to add the walls to the base. And as I was starting to do this, I realized that I made a mistake, or I didn't think all the way through something. So I wanted to point this out because the plans that we sell will reflect the correct way to do it rather than what you just watched me do. Instead of putting the wall, the panel on the outside of this framing, what I should have done is put all of the framing together and then put the panel on so that the panel extended over this base. And the reason for that is because it would add some coverage over this unpressure treated piece of wood. That way, when we seal up this surface, it would seal this up from water splashing up on it. It's not the end of the world, but if you make this, follow the plans rather than the video, because we will correct this in the plans. It'll end up looking better, but for now, I'm just gonna have to go ahead and move ahead as I've started working, and then I'll make an extra piece of trim down here to cover this up and keep it safe. So I've got the walls attached to the base, but I need to get the top attached to itself. And normally, if you were building like a big shed, you would do this differently. You would have a rafter system, you'd have a cross piece, but this is very small, and I'm trying to cut down on material. It doesn't need to be very strong, it's holding a metal roof. So here's what we're gonna do. I've got a couple more pieces that will act as spacers. And these are gonna go right here. They're partially for the visual of what the front of it's gonna look like, but basically these are gonna go in there and be screwed in place. And then across these top rafter pieces, I've got some 1x3s. These are gonna go across here, and they're gonna act as a base for you to be able to screw the metal roof into. There's also gonna be a small gap on the ends of each of these pieces that are gonna act as a vent. Now I didn't really plan on how to attach this piece to the frame, so I'm kind of making that up as I go. You could add pocket holes to one side of it and screw it in, but that's just another tool. So if you've got that available, just do that. But I'm trying to avoid adding more tools to this, so we're gonna try toe nailing it, or toe screwing it. And it's kind of heavy. Well, that hurt. It's not light, but it's not terrible. But the good thing is at this point, The entire frame is put together. It's as big as it's going to be. It just needs doors and a roof and all that stuff. So the doors can be attached outside, and if you have the chance to make this outside, you can just build it in place, which would be great. I don't, and I don't have enough ceiling height in here to be able to stand it up. So we're going to finish the parts we can finish in here. Then we're gonna roll it outside to attach the doors. We can go ahead and make them, but we can't put them on until later. I did it wrong. I'm realizing that the little mistake that I showed you earlier is now having compounding effects. Again, the plans are gonna be right, so follow the plans. But by not having the sidewall overlap the bottom, that changes how I was thinking of doing the front and the corners and all this type of stuff. So I'm gonna have to modify it a little bit. But again, the plans will be the right way. As long as you follow the plans, you'll be good. Follow the plans. Okay, that seems like a weird piece to put on. But basically it's just a spacer, and this is gonna act as a way to get the front trim and the front door on the same level so that the hinges can go across. Adding this little strip, although it's ugly right now, is actually a way to simplify a lot of other stuff. So we're adding this, it's gonna get completely covered up, but it's helpful. So with that spacer there, now we're gonna put a piece of this face frame on top of it to cover it up and raise up the whole surface, which means the door can go right here. It's gonna be a panel of this paneling material laying across with its own face frame on top of it. That's gonna be all super tied together, and then the hinges will go across the door to this frame. So basically, we just need to rip out the doors, lay them in place, build a face frame on top of them on both sides, and then this thing's pretty much ready for paint and finish. 42 inches, I need to take out an 1/8 of an inch gap there, there, and there. So I need to take out 3/8, which means 41 and 5/8 divided by 2 is 40 and 5/16. That's not right at all. The next step is not my favorite, but it is a necessary one, and it's the biggest kind of transformation. It takes a stack of kind of meh looking wood, it makes it look like a finished product. It's gonna compete with the stuff that we could have bought at the store. Now so far, I've spent about $350 in wood, which seems like a lot, but it's a lot cheaper than buying an entire shed. I have not taken into account this finish that I'm gonna use because I already had it and I don't know how much it costs. Also, I'm reusing the paint that I used on the outside of our porch, so I'm not taking that into account. Outdoor paint, outdoor clear coat made for boats. It's gonna be perfect for covering these two surfaces.
That's not a boat.
If it can seal a boat, it can seal a shed. So the last thing that I have to do for this is put on a roof. And for that, I've got a piece of metal roofing, just one piece, and it's probably way more than I need. It's an option I've never done before. I've done some shingles before, but I've never laid down metal roofing, and it actually looks pretty easy. The only problem is how to cut it. So my assumption was that I was gonna use 10 snips or maybe an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel to cut across it, and both of those would totally work. But I went looking for the best way to do it, the cleanest, easiest way to cut across a sheet of this stuff, and it turns out that it's a modified circular saw. I've never tried this before, but I want to give it a shot. I watched a couple of videos and this seems to work well, but I've never tried it, and so basically I'm trying it to figure out to see if it works, but also to let you know if it actually works or not, so that if it doesn't, you don't have to go through the pain. So basically what other people have done is they take a regular circular saw, they take the blade off and they flip it around backwards. Now, I haven't really looked into why that's a better way to cut it, but apparently it works pretty well. They did recommend that if you have an old blade, use that one instead, so this may mess with this blade, but it's the only one I've got, so I'm gonna give it a shot. And since I have way more of this than I'm gonna need, I'm gonna do a little test on this end, and if it cuts well, then I can cut across the whole piece down there. All right, that actually did work out pretty well, but man, was it loud. So, don't forget, safety glasses, and hearing protection. Just cut myself. Be careful, because the edges are really, really sharp. So far, this is a super easy way to put a roof on something like this. May not work in every situation, but it works great for a shed like this. Now, a few notes. There is a profile on the front of this that's gonna be open. They do make some kind of rubber inserts or wood inserts to go in that profile to cover up those openings on the front and the back if you need that. In this case, I don't really care. Also, to attach this, I added those 3 stringers across the length of the thing. And that's so I have something to screw into. I'm gonna use these to drive this thing in. These are sharp point roofing screws. They're made specifically for this. They've got a hex head so you can put them right in a driver. But the big thing is that they have a sharp point, so they'll go into the metal. And then they've also got this double washer. One's metal, and then one is rubber to seal up the opening that this is gonna make to stop water from getting in. All I gotta do is drive these in, and this thing will be done. Okay, so the outside is sealed and painted. It's got a roof, so it should keep water out pretty well. And now I can build some really simple shelves on the inside so I can put all that stuff in there. Obviously, the inside of this can be customized to whatever you want. I made some really, really simple shelves, and I mentioned before having a place to store basketballs and other things. This is a great way to do it. I use surgical tubing, but you could use bungee cords and it would work exactly the same as a way to keep them in place until you pull them out. I've also got easy storage for hanging up shovels and other things, just using screws directly into the wood paneling. This is a great way to customize exactly for your needs. And if you want to make one of these, we're going to have plans available for them. Links down in the description. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Now it's time for bloopers. I said, oh, that's not going to work because of the dingle. And then I'm going to be painting these. And that's because I'm gonna need, wow, coffee. Let me start over slow and make it look like a finished product. And that is, product?